My fiancé insisted I sign a prenuptial agreement as a precaution, so I had my attorney slip in a provision he clearly never bothered to examine. Garrett initially mentioned the prenup half a year before our planned ceremony, and I wasn't concerned. As an accomplished architect, I could see why he'd want to safeguard his holdings. This is just routine procedure, he explained, pushing the documents toward me over our dining room counter. My business associate requires all the men to have one. However, his behavior became increasingly strange. He'd bring up how crucial it was to finalize this matter soon, mentioning it every couple of days. When I proposed we each retain independent counsel for proper examination, he dismissed the idea. Mine has already handled all the details. All we need is for you to sign. The contract consisted of 47 dense pages of legal terminology that basically stated I'd receive nothing if we separated. No spousal support, no rights to assets obtained while married, no pension claims. Even presents given to me would return to his possession. This appears rather unbalanced, I pointed out. His expression hardened. Are you committed to marrying me or aren't you? Warning sign 1. My insistence on personal legal representation triggered an outburst. You clearly don't have faith in me after 3 years together. Then followed manipulation about wedding expenses and his stress from a major work project. Warning sign 2. Patricia, my attorney, was appalled by the agreement's conditions. This constitutes financial exploitation disguised as legal documentation, she stated. But if you're resolved to proceed, allow me to insert some safeguards. We embedded supplementary provisions deep within the text, routine legal phrasing regarding asset declarations, property assessments, and required arbitration. Nothing that would catch attention during a cursory review, plus one particularly significant stipulation. When I returned with the modified contract, Garrett barely looked at it before adding his signature. About time, he grumbled. Now we can concentrate on what matters. 14 days later, I learned what truly mattered to him. During dinner, his phone lit up. The message preview displayed, "Looking forward to our Cabo getaway following your marriage. All my love from someone called Ivy." Once he went to shower, I examined months of correspondence. Garrett had been organizing his post-wedding vacation in Mexico with his 8-month girlfriend. They'd reserved connecting suites and calculated how long he'd have to remain married before initiating divorce proceedings. She's wealthy, one text stated. This contract ensures I'll receive 50% when we separate. Only Garrett had endorsed the document without examining Patricia's insertions, particularly the section stating that either party engaging in infidelity during the courtship or union surrenders all claims to shared assets and must pay the wronged partner $500,000 in penalties. I documented everything. The following day, I contacted Patricia. Activate the infidelity provision. I possess proof. Garrett's expression when the legal representative arrived justified every dollar of Patricia's charges. The court documents detailed his betrayal, his intended deception, and his newfound monetary responsibilities. This isn't possible, he sputtered, frantically reviewing the paperwork. Oh, but it is. Review page 23 of your agreement, the section you skipped. His business associate's firm contacted that evening, ending their professional relationship. It emerged that Garrett's routine procedure advice wasn't corporate guidance but his individual suggestion for helping colleagues deceive their partners. Ivy abandoned him upon discovering the $500,000 ruling. Recently, I applied the compensation toward purchasing my ideal home. Garrett now stocks shelves at Home Depot. Yet that wasn't the conclusion. 3 weeks following the delivery of Garrett's legal notice, my telephone began ringing. The initial contact arrived at 6:47 a.m. Are you Melanie? The speaker sounded uncertain. Youthful. I am. May I ask who's calling? I'm Chloe. I read the news coverage regarding your fiancé, the prenuptial situation. She hesitated. I believe he pulled the same scheme on my sister. I straightened in bed. Could you elaborate? Garrett Pembroke, correct? Tall, brunette, architectural professional. He was with my sister Brooke for 2 years, had her endorse something prior to their engagement, then betrayed her with someone from his fitness center. My heart sank. When did this occur? Last year. Brooke received nothing in the separation. He retained her grandmother's engagement ring, her vehicle obligations, all of it. She's still settling their shared credit accounts. I reached for a notepad. Could you provide your sister's contact information? An hour later, I met Brooke at a downtown cafe, 26 years old, elementary school educator, appearing as though she hadn't rested properly in ages. Something felt wrong about that agreement, she mentioned, mechanically swirling her coffee. But Garrett insisted it was standard, that all accomplished partners had them. She produced a folder. I kept everything, documents, correspondence, even audio of our arguments regarding it. The contract nearly mirrored mine, identical 47 pages, matching unfair conditions, though prepared by another attorney. Both Garrett's and Brooke's signatures appeared below. Who was the third party? I inquired. Brooke's features darkened. A fitness coach called Tasha. Garrett funded her training appointments throughout our engagement, 45 minutes bi-weekly for half a year. The timeline calculations revealed this coincided with when Garrett began pursuing me. Brooke, I must ask something crucial. Did Garrett ever reference his business associate's guidance regarding prenuptials? she affirmed gradually, constantly. He claimed his associate, someone called Rick, advised everyone at the company to secure themselves that modern women only wanted financial gain. Warning sign 3. And my investigation had barely begun. That afternoon, I contacted Patricia. We must investigate further. I suspect Garrett's been executing this fraud for years. How extensively? Patricia questioned. As far as necessary. Patricia engaged Tony Castellanos, a private detective, former law enforcement, focused on financial crimes. Within 7 days, he'd located 2 additional casualties. Rachel, a healthcare professional from Portland, 18-month relationship with Garrett, prenuptial signing, discovered his affair with a colleague, forfeited her funds, her apartment, and her capacity to trust. Kiara, a visual designer from Seattle, identical narrative, different time frame, agreement, betrayal, monetary destruction. Tony arranged the evidence on my dining surface, the same spot where Garrett had initially presented his contract. Notice the scheme, Tony indicated, marking critical passages. Every agreement is virtually duplicate. Identical legal representation prepared them. Matching conditions, matching exploits. And observe this. He presented financial records. Garrett's been collecting funds from an entity named Pembroke Investment Holdings. $50,000 transferred half a year following each separation. My blood chilled. Who controls Pembroke Investment Holdings? Still investigating, but I suspect we'll uncover some fascinating connections. Tony's intuition proved accurate. Pembroke Investment Holdings was a front organization controlled by Richard Costas, Garrett's business associate, the very Rick who'd allegedly been counseling Garrett about self-protection. The situation deteriorated further. Tony discovered agreements between Garrett and Rick spanning 5 years. Garrett wasn't merely defrauding women independently. He was compensated for it. The agreements were precise, methodical. Garrett would pursue accomplished women possessing substantial resources, court them for 12 to 18 months, propose with an exploitative contract, betray them to trigger separation, then receive payment from Rick. It's a twisted enterprise system, Patricia observed after reviewing the proof. Romantic manipulation as income generation. I examined the agreements, nauseated. How many casualties? Tony checked his documentation. 7 verified over 5 years, potentially additional undiscovered cases. 7 women, 7 disrupted existences. 7 hearts shattered for earnings. Sleep eluded me that evening. I couldn't stop considering Brooke's vacant gaze, Rachel's unsteady grip, Kiara's guarded stance when discussing trust. Garrett hadn't merely been unfaithful, he'd built his profession on devastating women's lives. The next day I contacted Patricia. I want to prosecute Rick as well, and locate every casualty. That will require substantial resources, Patricia cautioned, and complexity. I'm unconcerned. Utilize whatever settlement funds necessary. We established a contact line. Patricia published a carefully constructed announcement in 3 prominent newspapers' legal sections. Were you requested to endorse a marital contract by architect Garrett Pembroke? Reach out concerning your legal options. Responses began instantly. Casualty 8, Diana, an animal doctor from Austin. She'd wisely declined the agreement, prompting Garrett to vanish entirely. Blocked her contacts, vacated their shared residence, abandoned her with unaffordable rent. Casualty 9, Naomi, a programmer from Denver. She'd endorsed the contract, but uncovered Garrett's unfaithfulness before marrying. When she attempted cancellation, he demanded reimbursement for wedding expenses, $23,000. Within 7 days, we'd verified 12 casualties. Tony discovered additional agreements in Rick's documents. The enterprise was growing. Rick was enlisting other men, instructing them in Garrett's methods. They'd planned to expand the scheme. It resembles multi-level marketing, Tony clarified, except they're distributing emotional damage instead of merchandise. I convened an urgent conference with Patricia and Tony. We must halt this immediately before additional harm occurs. Patricia reclined thoughtfully. What's your proposal? Group litigation targeting both perpetrators and complete public disclosure. That's considerable exposure, Patricia noted. You'll become a focal point. I considered Brooke, still settling Garrett's debts. Rachel, residing with family due to financial constraints. Naomi, who'd confided she'd avoided relationships for 2 years, paralyzed by deception fears. Certain risks merit taking. Patricia initiated the group action on Tuesday. By Thursday, headlines dominated. Area architect charged with coordinating romance fraud, the Tribune declared. The coverage exposed the agreements, the front company, the calculated exploitation of women for earnings. Garrett's photograph appeared prominently, smiling confidently in his professional portrait, oblivious to his approaching downfall. The narrative spread rapidly. By Friday's end, 3 additional casualties had contacted us. Monday brought 17 total. Major media requested interviews. Today Show, 60 Minutes, Dateline. Patricia recommended declining, but I accepted Today Show. Maximum exposure prevents future occurrences, I explained. Perhaps we'll protect someone. The segment broadcast Wednesday morning. I remained composed opposite the interviewer while they aired Tony's discovered recordings from Rick's workspace. The strategy involves making them believe it's their concept. Garrett's voice resonated clearly. Introduce asset protection subtly, then appear hesitant when they propose the agreement. The interviewer appeared revolted. This was commerce for them. Extremely lucrative commerce, I confirmed. Rick compensated Garrett $50,000 per casualty. They'd recognized an unexploited demographic, accomplished women possessing resources and genuine hearts. The 12-minute piece concluded with 43 logged calls, not exclusively casualties, some attorneys volunteering assistance, journalists investigating comparable operations elsewhere. 3 communications stood apart. First, Garrett's mother. I was completely unaware, her voice breaking. I apologize deeply for my son's actions toward you all. Second, Rick's former spouse. The money's origin always puzzled me. Rick claimed investment yields, but the schedule seemed wrong. The third paralyzed me. They possibly murdered my daughter. Dorothy Brennan's daughter Melissa had been discovered deceased 6 months prior. Apparent self-infliction. Single firearm wound. She'd been involved with someone named Garrett. She intended marriage, Dorothy explained, but complications arose. She became severely withdrawn, stopped nourishment, ceased communication. I clutched the receiver. Mrs. Brennan, did Melissa discuss a prenuptial agreement? That dominated her final month's conversations, how this contract would destroy her financially. She'd received $2 million from her father's estate. Losing it terrified her. Patricia and I visited Dorothy immediately. Her suburban home displayed countless photographs of Melissa, beautiful, dark-haired, radiating kindness. She worked with foster youth, Dorothy shared. The inheritance would have funded her own organization. Dorothy provided an envelope, found among Melissa's belongings posthumously. The significance escaped me. The contents revealed email exchanges between Melissa and Garrett. Standard emotional manipulation transitioning to contract pressure, but these communications carried darker undertones, more hostile, more menacing. Without sufficient trust to endorse this, one message threatened, "Perhaps we're incompatible. Perhaps you're identical to previous gold seekers I've encountered." Another proved worse. My attorney mentioned that if someone expires before matrimony, the survivor might pursue emotional compensation from their estate. Worth considering. The implications sickened me. Dorothy wept silently. Authorities declared suicide, relationship depression, but Melissa wasn't self-destructive. She possessed incredible strength. I transferred the correspondence to Patricia. "Can we pursue reinvestigation?" "We'll attempt it," Patricia responded. However, challenging a closed suicide determination requires substantial evidence. Tony began immediately. He analyzed police documentation, questioned Melissa's acquaintances, studied scene photographs. His discoveries proved troubling. Melissa allegedly self-inflicted using her non-dominant hand. Medical documentation confirmed right-handedness with restricted left-hand function from childhood trauma. The weapon belonged to Garrett. Security footage placed Garrett's vehicle at Melissa's complex during her death. Authorities had overlooked everything, presuming suicide initially. Tony approached the original investigator, Detective Morrison, a near-retirement officer who resented implications of missed evidence. "I comprehend wanting resolution," Morrison stated, "but individuals sometimes reach limits." She was despondent about her relationship. "It occurs." "Were you aware the firearm belonged to her partner?" Tony questioned. Morrison appeared uncomfortable. "Partners frequently share weapons." "Did you realize she was left-handed?" "Why's that relevant?" Tony displayed scene photographs on Morrison's workspace. She allegedly utilized her non-dominant hand, yet these medical files show neurological impairment in that hand from childhood trauma. Writing was impossible. Morrison examined the images extensively. His complexion paled. "Christ," he whispered. "How'd we overlook this?" Within 7 days, authorities reclassified Melissa's death as murder. Garrett's apprehension occurred Thursday morning at his Home Depot employment. News crews documented everything. Garrett wearing his store uniform, appearing bewildered and frightened during the rights reading. Rick's arrest happened simultaneously at his firm. Authorities confiscated electronics, documents, financial records. Their fraud evidence proved undeniable, but Garrett's murder accusation dominated coverage. National attention followed. An attractive architect who courted accomplished women, appropriated their wealth, and potentially eliminated one who threatened exposure. People magazine featured Melissa's image, the woman who perished for romance. The proceedings commenced 6 months later. I detailed the contract fraud, organized exploitation, Garrett and Rick's arrangements. 12 additional women shared experiences. Dorothy Brennan sobbed, describing discovering Melissa. Prosecutors established clearly, Garrett Pembroke was an exploiter who progressed from monetary fraud to homicide when threatened by exposure. Garrett's defense proved weak. His representation claimed legal contracts, mutual relationships, maintained suicide despite evidence. 4 hours of deliberation yielded, guilty across 17 fraud charges, guilty of premeditated homicide. Garrett received lifetime imprisonment without release possibility. Rick received 15 years for fraud participation. Civil proceedings produced $12 million in judgments against both perpetrators. Every casualty received restitution, Melissa's estate receiving the largest portion. Yet finances couldn't reverse harm. Brooke still recoils from male attention. Rachel relocated nationally and assumed a new identity. Naomi established support services for romance fraud casualties. Melissa's photograph remained displayed throughout proceedings, reminding us this exceeded monetary justice. A young woman who'd intended helping foster youth had instead become prey. 2 years passed before Dorothy Brennan contacted me. "I'm establishing a foundation honoring Melissa for aged-out foster youth," she announced, funded through her inheritance, the assets Garrett attempted stealing. "That's wonderful," I responded. "Melissa would approve." "I also wanted gratitude expressed," Dorothy added. "Without your resistance, your determination, he might have harmed others. You preserved lives." That dialogue lingered long after disconnecting. Patricia called 6 months later with developments. "Remember your Today Show appearance?" "Certainly. It's become evidence in 17 national cases. Garrett and Rick's methods inspired imitators, but your testimony helped authorities recognize patterns." I absorbed this heavily. 17 additional cases? 17 successful convictions, each citing your evidence as crucial. Effects continued spreading. Congress eventually enacted the Melissa Brennan Act, mandating verification for inheritance database access, eliminating exploiter tactics for identifying targets. 3 years post-trial, I married David, an educator who rejected prenuptial discussions entirely. "Complete faith exists between us," he stated when I raised it. "Asset protection remains your decision, but I won't request you surrender rights." Our modest celebration included genuine supporters. Brooke attended. Rachel too. Naomi spoke about rediscovering romance after deception. Dorothy Brennan presented me with Melissa's photograph in a locket. "Melissa valued justice," she expressed. "You delivered it." 5 years hence, the Melissa Brennan Foundation has assisted over 300 foster youth achieving independence. The organization's emblem depicts a phoenix ascending, Melissa's preferred symbol. Garrett continues serving life imprisonment in California's maximum security. Annual appeals consistently fail. Rick completed 12 of 15 years before release. He pumps gas now, banned from architecture and finance. His former wife relocated after remarrying. I occasionally ponder undiscovered casualties, unheard narratives. Tony suggests we exposed perhaps 60% of Garrett's offenses. Yet I rest peacefully knowing Garrett's harm has ceased. The settlement-purchased residence is lovely. 3 bedrooms, garden space, and workspace for advocacy services. I assist women through legal processes following financial exploitation and provide testimony for romance fraud proceedings. Recently, Zoe contacted my service. Her partner pressured contract signing, inducing guilt over reluctance, claiming standard procedure. "Your coverage stays with me," she expressed. From Today Show. "I recognized his contract matching your description. I met Zoe immediately. Her agreement duplicated Garrett's original precisely, including gift reversion language. Patricia's involvement revealed Zoe's partner had attended Rick's presentations before arrest, executing Garrett's strategy verbatim. Zoe terminated the relationship immediately, retaining the engagement ring legally considered her gift. She financed law school with proceeds. "I'll assist others as you assisted me," she declared. The pattern perpetuates. Women supporting women, exposing hidden predators, requiring responsibility from trust exploiters. I sometimes imagine signing Garrett's initial contract, trusting his guarantees, dismissing intuition, preserving harmony over self-protection. Melissa might survive. 17 women might avoid copycat targeting. The Melissa Brennan Act might never exist. Individual resistance creates transformation. Patricia retired but maintains contact. Through 3 decades practicing law, she recently reflected, "Your matter provided greatest fulfillment." Why? I wondered. It demonstrated predators face consequences, systematic exploitation gets exposed, individual bravery safeguards countless others. Melissa's image remains beside my wedding photograph. Both remind me, genuine affection strengthens rather than weakens, enhances rather than diminishes. Anyone requesting rights surrender for romance offers transaction, not love. You merit infinitely more. The foundation updates describe assisted youth. Marcus pursues social work. Priya founded her nonprofit for vulnerable adolescents. Numerous others construct lives honoring Melissa's values. Her heritage isn't tragic death, but continuing lives through her memory and our collective action. Annually, Dorothy and I visit Melissa's resting place on her death's anniversary. We deliver flowers and foundation updates, describe assisted women, reformed legislation, halted predators, This year included news of additional state legislation mirroring the Melissa Brennan Act. She continues protecting people, Dorothy stated, arranging white lilies. Departing, Dorothy reflected, I sometimes contemplate all Garrett's potential future casualties without your resistance. Every surviving Melissa because you rejected victimization. I considered Zoe progressing through law education. Brooke tentatively dating. 17 terminated copycat operations through investigator awareness. Unnamed women who absorbed the narrative and honored their discomfort. That's genuine triumph. Beyond finances, incarceration, or media attention, it's women's safety because one person scrutinized details, rejected surrendering rights for romance, demonstrated that predator silence sometimes proves most hazardous. Garrett believed himself intelligent, concealing that infidelity provision where he assumed I'd never discover it. He miscalculated that, and numerous assumptions, particularly that affection diminishes women's intelligence. Affection empowers women, creates protectiveness, generates willingness for righteous battles despite steep costs. Occasionally, when fortune aligns, affection produces sufficient anger for global transformation. Settlement funds disappeared, donated to foundations, or financing other casualties' representation. No regrets exist. What value has wealth without preventing others' suffering? David and I pursue parenthood now. Contemplating their future world brings satisfaction, one where predators like Garrett face imprisonment, where Melissa receives remembrance and respect, where affection measures not through sacrifice but through protection. Patricia's detailed provisions created that reality. That exceeds any contract's worth.